G'day YouTube, my name's Lance. Welcome to Bundy Bear's Shed. Well, the weather report, 12 to 24. Look, it's going to be a lovely sunny day today, but yesterday it was just cloudy and just a bit of drizzle, just a shitty day sort of thing. Saturday was pretty good though. Quite breezy Saturday, but it was nice and sunny, and I spent most of Saturday trying to tidy up in the shed here before we go away this weekend, and watering the fruit trees. And yeah, I'll just run the sprinkler from the pressure pump out there, and we'll drop the big tank on we dropped the big tank on the shed here a little bit. But yeah, the citrus trees, they have a fairly light root base, and they were starting to show a bit of stress because it's starting to dry out where we are here now. So spent the day buggering around there doing that. Every 20 minutes, half hour or so, 40 minutes for the big trees or an hour for the big trees, we'd go and shift sprinklers and fiddle around and tidy the place up a little bit just before we go away. We're heading away this Saturday 12th of August, on our big 5-week trip up to North Queensland and the Cape York and the Tip and go that. So we're all a bit excited. Yeah, not many sleeps now. So we'll be heading off, and I've got the ute on Saturday. I've got a Brown Davis long range fuel tank in it, which is 110 litre tank, and I think I had a look the other day, and the 240 litres of fuel that I have the capability of carrying, I think in the US that's 65 US gallons, maybe something like that. But anyway, this 110 litre tank, it's got a switch and a solenoid, and as you're driving along, I can flick a switch on the dash, and I've got the original fuel tank with the original fuel pump in, and it comes up to this junction box. And the new system has its own fuel pump, its own complete separate system until it gets to this little junction box, and then I have a little bar graph fuel gauge for the auxiliary tank and the needle on the dash for the other. But they both come into this little solenoid, and it's a changeover tap, and driving along the road you can just flick either auxiliary or main and use whichever tank you like, depending on what weight. Like, you don't have to travel with them full all the time, but depending on what weight distribution you want, or yeah, you know, it's just worth doing. But on the new tank, where they brought the fuel line up to this little changeover solenoid, inside the chassis they had one of those little plastic inline fuel filters, and I've been looking at it thinking, oh, the bloody rock's going to hit that one day. And I didn't get it changed when we went down south, the Snowy River, all that sort of thing, down the fold of Snowy River, down Jindabyne and that, those forest tracks. We had it there and nothing happened. But anyway, it's been on my mind. So last week, Saturday, I got under there and I've taken the filter out. I've put a new piece of fuel hose in, and I've put a little brass tail there. So that's something else off my mind. It doesn't need that little screen in there because the fuel comes up into the main fuel filter for the car, for the vehicle, and it's got a water sensor and all on the bottom. So if you get a bit of moisture in, and it's a 5 micron fuel filter, and which is a standard Toyota fitment, and we have some spares of those with us in case we grab a shit batch of fuel. And so the idea is that if we get a bit of water or contamination there, the light comes on the dash, and we can pull up and drain that out and see what's going on, flick over to the other tank if we haven't. Often I'll only run on one tank, so the fuel in the other tank won't be filled up at the same service station quite often. But anyway, then from that fuel filter we have another 2 micron filter that wasn't standard on the car, but it's a filter probably so long, so round, and it's the final fuel filter for a John Deere 6930 6-cylinder 6.8 litre tractor. So everyone's saying, oh, you know, that fuel filter, that second one, it'll restrict flow. Well, I'm just calling bullshit. If you can run a 6.8 litre big John Deere, my motor's 4.5 litre, and they go right up to the 7.6 litre engine with this one final fuel filter for the common rail system in the tractors. So that's my number 2 safety. So if we get a dose of crap fuel and the light comes on, we're notified on the dash, we can deal with that. We can work out what's going on, drain a bit out of the tank or whatever we need to do to keep going. But this other filter on the other side, it's my safety one, and there's a drain on the bottom, so I can actually drain that out and see if there's any moisture got to the second filter, rather than, you know, getting to your injectors and buggering them up. So so that's all done now. Don't have to worry about that. Today I've got to split a bit of kindling to put in the nut sacks on the back, and we'll take a bit of firewood, but apart from that, the vehicle's ready to rock and roll. Just got to put a few duds in and things like that. So yeah, it's getting real. We're getting excited. It's going to be a long week. Got to go to work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know. I'm not that keen on going Friday, so I might not. Might go in the morning and that. But our friends Mick and Margaret and Dave and Jody, they're coming to stay here this coming Friday evening, and yeah, so we'll have we're going to have a cook up and a dinner here, and head off early Saturday morning. Adele, the daughter Adele, she's looking after the place, and Paulie, my mate Paul, that's got the shipping containers over there, he's coming out this arb for a yarn, and he's going to have the lawnmower and the whippersnippers and all the bits and pieces over in his shipping container. Pardon me, and he just lives in town, and he loves coming out here fiddling, buggering about, so he's going to look after the lawns and the all that, so he'll be coming and going as well. So yeah, that'll be a good thing. Yeah, so the place will be tidy when we come back, and yeah, no big jobs. Pardon me. 3, 2. Yeah, Saturday evening, Tim and Ali come over for a visit. They've got a well, usually when they come over, there's Airy and Arrow and Freya and that, and they said, well, they don't sort of come and see us for just Freya. Yeah, it's always with the whole lot. And we said, oh, that's all right, we don't mind. But yeah, they come over Saturday after for a visit and stayed Saturday evening for dinner. And yeah, Tim and I polished off. Oh, I had this bottle of rum. It's small batch rum, about $90 for a bottle, and it was a gift. And yeah, I said to Tim, you feel like a rum? And he said, oh yeah, that'd be all right. So we got the rum and the soda water going, and anyway, there's about so much left in the bottle now, and I must be out of practice. Yesterday morning I said to Jude, I said, oh, bloody second hand today. So, which didn't matter. Not crook, just second hand, you know. You haven't got the normal energy you have, but that worked out fine. Yeah, I had a bit of work to do up in my machine shop. Then Mum come out for a visit, and our friends Sal and Dave come out for the afternoon, and so we had a busy time anyway, and so yeah, it worked out okay in the long run. Pardon me, very asthma-y today. The pin and the pulley for this engine here, the 1929 regular, the latter half of the stew, I'm going to cover some of that. Now, last week on the second video, I'd made up a little stand to hold the pivot, so we could bore this pivot out to get the wear out of it and fit the new pin. And I hadn't realised at the time, I thought it might have been out a little bit, because when I centred the boring bar in the top of it, and look, the top centre's really nice, but as it comes down, it was starting to blow out the side a little bit. And I was thinking, oh, I didn't realise it was so dicky, must be a crappy casting. So we did the run so it was parallel, and I pulled up before I got the full circle down the bottom end, because I felt I was taking too much meat out. And I got time through the week to have a look at that. And what's happened in the past, You think some of these old-time machine skills were, the fellas took more attention to detail, but not on that bracket. That bracket, the main pivot was true, but the other bracket at the end where the pulley was, well, it was something like 11 degrees I'd measured roughly out. And so the pulley must have been sitting up at 11 degrees, and then you can see why the belt was running one way. So I've done a little diagram up in my machine shop. And so what I've had to do is, because where the small hole is and you clamp the shaft for the pulley in, there's not enough room to straighten that up and have good clamping pressure and make a good solid thing. So I've opened up the big hole more, and I've made up a bush to press in there and Loctite in, and then this main pin that comes out, instead of being 1 1/4, we'll drop that down to 1 1/8, and that'll give us a good true thing. But with that stand I made, I'm 0.3 of a degree difference. And look, I've got a little setup up the front there, I'll show that when we do it. But I was surprised it was so far out. I thought I was machining out wear, but there is some wear coming out, but there's a lot of other stuff too going on. But what we're doing, because the little one, there's not enough meat to do that soundly and put a bolt in without thinning the housing enough and it'll crack and just be a shit in general. We've bored the bigger one bigger and made a bush to suit, so you won't be able to tell once it's on the tractor, and it'll be a proper job, it'll be proper parallel, true, but I was a bit surprised that it was so far out. One of those things though, I suppose. In manufacture it must have slipped through and 90 years worth, but you can see where the pulleys, where it's been running across one side, and when you actually sit it to where it was and have a look at it all, she was on the piss, something shocking. So anyway, not to worry. We've got that sorted. Yeah, the old Chinese air jack turned up through the week, so I did the video on that. I've used it a couple of times and lifts the ute and things like that. It's not too bad. As I was saying in the video there, the fit and finish is rubbish. But it's okay. And they've been a good company to deal with. I told them, I put the video out, they gave us the code. You can jump on the bottom of that video anytime for Vevor and get a 5% discount. And there's a link to the Australian site, the USA site and the European site, and you can get the discount anywhere in the world off that. We've had a look at what else we might be doing with them because they were very good to deal with, and those hydraulic gauges I showed you last week, they're on the go. And for when we come back, and there's a air pump bead breaker. So the pump I have on my press, that you put air in and you press the pedal and it gives you about 10,000 psi. They've got one of them hooked to a bead breaker, and they say for tractor tyres and truck tyres and that. So I reckon I've got a couple of things I could test that on. We'll see anyway. But some of those old tyres, by Christ, they're hard to get off. I always get my rims sorted out and I go and buy new tyres when I need to, and I fit the tyres myself because they're nice and soft. But some of those hard old tyres, they're just bloody hard work. So I've done about all I'm going to do in the shed until we go away. I will try and come up here. I'd like to sweep the floor a bit and just tidy up a little bit. We'll head up to the machine shop up the front shortly. I'll show you what's going on. I still have to machine this pin down to the final size, but I need to leave it fat to show you what's going on. So we'll leave it fat for that, and that'll work out okay. I should be able to have a reasonable show of what was going on there. So anyway, look, that might do for this part of the stew. We'll get up the front there. We'll finish it off with this little bit of machining stuff. And like I say, Saturday we're heading off. My little vlogging camera, it's got a separate microphone. I've been testing that out and it seems good. So instead of taking the big camera and the big mics and the Tascam, pardon me, And the Tascam, I'm going to leave the Tascam home. I'm just going to use a little vlogging mic and we're just going to suck it and see. I just don't want to load up with, I will take this camera, but I just don't want to load up with this camera, the other camera, the Tascam, the laptops, the whole bit. It just becomes too much. And yeah, we're out there for a holiday and we are going to take the little cameras and that, and it's going to be fun filming that, and when time allows we'll pop up a bit of a vlog. And I don't know how many or how often or anything like that, but no doubt if you're subscribed and you've got the little bell button pressed, well, you'll be notified when there's a little story on where we are and what we're doing. So look, that's it for this part of the stew. We'll head up the other end. Thanks for dropping by, and yeah, we'll see you in a week or two, eh? As I mentioned earlier in the stew, we've run across a little bit of trouble with this bracket here. Now, if you can recall, this bracket, I made I made this piece here. I turned that up, I turned this, turned it all in one hit. We put that there like that, bolted that down, clamped that into the milling machine, and then we bored the hole. And you can see at the front there we've got it nice and central in the hole, and we indicated the top here. Didn't indicate down here, which I probably should have in hindsight, but so we did that. But what's happened is we've cleaned up all the top half down to about here, and then you can see that we've blown out the back. See, the tools come out the side here, so we haven't got the full body worth of metal there to support it. So it turns out that in the factory originally this has been machined wrong, and I'm bloody sure it's been machined wrong. So if you see my little drawing here, we have the crankshaft here. Everything drives off the crank, and then we have the pin that we're making that goes into the pivot here, and then we have the fan hub here. Now these old type pulleys, they were all domed, so they had a high spot in the centre, and a pulley with the high spot in the centre, the belt will actually track to that high spot and stay there. But the trouble we were having with this one here, you can see where it's pushed one way all of the time, and so this pin had quite a bit of wear in it, and so we remanufactured that pin so far. This had a lot of wear in it, so we've set this up in the mill and we've bored this out to try and get rid of that slop. But when we have machined that and we've come out the side here, I started having a look at see if this housing here had been machined true. Now this housing, this hole here, had been machined true. This one hadn't. And it's something like 10 or 11 degrees off. And this here was sitting up and the belt was running to the back hard. So what's happened is, because I've made this, I've put that in there, bolted it tight, clamped it down, I've registered off this housing that is wrong. That's the wrong one. But in looking at how we got ourselves out the can, there's not enough meat in here, in this hole, and it's a cast bracket, so I don't want to make this clamping area here any thinner. So I had a look and thought, well, could I open this out, say 2 millimeters, 40 thou, 80 thou, and push the bush in straight and then reclamped it, but I'm not confident that there's enough beef in here, there's enough meat in the housing that it won't crack when we do it up. So what we've done is, with this main pin that goes through that we've manufactured, I've manufactured an oversized pin, but we're just not happy with that. That's rubbish. So what I've done, I've got a snug fit. Is that the right way? Got to go this way. So I've made a bush to press in here now, and that's going to be Loctited in place. It's a really nice fit. It's going to be put in place, and the main pivot pin that goes through, instead of having it at 1 1/4 inches, and we're nearly at 1 3/8 inches, we're going to pull this pin back to 1 1/8 inches. So this gets pressed in. We have to drill a hole in through the hole where the grease nipple goes, and I've already machined a little track inside to spread the grease around. So that's our fix. That area there where the bush comes out, that's nice and smooth, and in the tractor it sits like that, so with this up and the shaft coming forward. So look, that's our fix for this bit. But just something interesting, I've got one of those little bevel boxes, little angle gauges, and we'll go over to the lathe and I'll show you where we've bored this exactly true. And I think I'm 0.3 of a degree out, and look, that's gravy when you're playing with old tractors. That's good as anything. So yeah, hang tight, we'll reset the camera up over on the lathe and I'll show you that we have got this and these two parallel. So this, where this shaft goes, is parallel with this shaft here. So this is screwed into the engine. We know that is parallel, has to be. The crank is fitted in the engine. This bracket here, that's been all over the shop with the fan and the well, it's mainly just got the fan and it holds the belt tension with this, but this will sit a little bit crooked now, like that, but this shaft will be parallel with the crank and this will be parallel with the crank, and the housing will just be a little bit dicky. So anyway, we'll go over to the lathe and I'll just show you yeah, what our machining last week turned out like. Okay, this is the oversized shaft. I've made this shaft just a snug fit in here without the bush. This is the bush we made. So this shaft has to be turned down yet to become a new one of these. So when I set the bevel box up there and zero it, okay, with 0 degrees there, then at the back here, I've got it supported by the oil can. At the back here is the shaft that we made to clamp it down. So we point 0.4 degree out. Yeah, it's been 0.3. I'll just zero that again. About 0.4 of a degree. Anyway, that's okay. Like on a mill with the flex we had with our little Chinese tools and that's okay. So we know that this hole here and this hole going through the bracket here now is parallel. Like we're happy with that. Now, if I take that off there, pull this out here, and this is the actual shaft that comes out that the fan turns on. So I might have to get rid of that oil can again. That's a snug fit in there. And so if we pop the bevel box on top of there, try and get this, yeah, like 0.2 of a degree compared to 0.1. So we've got our machining pretty good, but you can see that this is on a bit of an angle and that's a bit high there. So what we're going to do, well, what the next plan is I've made this bush to suit. So this bush is going to get pressed in, and actually it's a nice snug fit. I'll clean it up with you know, brake cleaner and that, and then this will be 680 Loctited in, you know, bearing retained in to there, and then we'll take a measurement of here and this will be machined through there. So once we've done that, we should be able to sit this on, slide it on with the bush in. We will have plenty of meat, like we won't have this thin section here, we'll have that much meat there, and look, that'll fix it. But yeah, look, just from the factory, it's been like that for 90 odd years, and oh, I suppose this would have been one of the tractors that first replaced the horse, so having belts in line and all that, probably no one took an awful lot of notice of that. So anyway, I'll the next cab off the rank is to bring this down, and I've got this so I can measure in here and make it fit on this pin here, and my measurements will be right. If I had this oversized and I had to really press it in here, I didn't want to go there because I've got no metal left here, and you start putting a press fit in a thin housing there's a fair chance it can crack out. So that's why I've just got a push fit, just so there's no pressure on here. So there you go. Next bet, or next job, is to put this bushing and work on this pin here. It's a little bit wide here. I have a mark, a trusty Nikko mark. I've got to take that black line out, and that'll be the proper width that will match the original pin. So there you go. We'll do a bit of machining, eh? Okay, so we're just going to touch off here, and I can usually run 1/2 mil cuts. Actually, 1/4 mil takes 1/2 mil off the OD, so it's about a 20 thou cut on my little lathe here. Yeah, sometimes I can do like 50 thou off the diameter, so 25 thou. If I'm running imperial, I go 25 thou with this tip here. If it's metric, I just go 1/2 mil, which is 20 thou, and yeah, look, it all seems to peel off nicely. So we'll just touch off, and we'll run a couple of cuts down and just find exactly where our tip is and go from there. It just doesn't feel quite right. I'm just going to, with the tip there, resettle it in the chuck, I think. That's better. You can just feel it smoother on the machine. Okay, just trying to find my little black mark there. It's about there.
Okay, if my DRO is working well, we should be damn close to 30 millimetres there. Oh look, I'm 0.2 of a mil, so we're 29.97. So we're just coming in under. Now the rate we're going for, or the measurement we're going for, is 28.1. So we'll just drop this down to 29. Okay, we'll see how we're going for a 29. Oh, look at that. 0.1 of a mil under. Okay, so our bush is 28.07, so we're going to just try and go for 28 roughly, and that'll give us a bit of grease clearance for the part, or I might go just a tad over, because we will polish it then, because I'm getting a slightly rough finish here, so nothing to worry about though really. 28.04, and that'll give us 0.3. Let's play with that. And what I can do at this stage is bring my bush in. And see, that's still a little bit tight, but it is warm. Yeah, it is warm. I might just go a tad tighter. Okay, that's quite warm, but yeah, look, with the polish I think that'll go. And bring this fella out. Yeah, once it cools down, because you can't hang on to that, it is quite bloody warm. So a bit of a hit with a bit of brake cleaner. That cools things down a little. Oh shit, didn't cool down that much. Not to worry. Okay. That's what we want. That'll sit up there nice and free. By the time we get it on, it sits there and we've got a grease poshing out through. Okay. We need to get the mighty Nico and pop that up there, bring that down here and part that off somewhere around there. So we'll support the end again, we'll bring the steady up, or the live centre up I should say. That looks good. I'm sure I had a part off tool here somewhere. Probably got 6 of the bloody things. There we go, stop looking. I think that'll be... Yep, that should go halfway. You can't really see that much, but... It'll come down there. Should be right. Support this. Okay, so this and that. Oh, look at that. How do we do it for the price? Alright, we have to put this hole in and all that yet, but we'll wait until we get that done. I do have to measure this through here and just see how we're travelling there for length. Yeah, because once a part goes up against that sort of lines up the pulleys. We could always shim adjust that and muck around there too. So, alright, I'll have a look. Okay, there we go, the pin's in. I've got to put a washer, it had a shake-proof washer there, so I'm going to leave that for the moment, and I'm not going to drill the hole in the end here until I see how we're going for it all lining up here. But the bush is in, that's okay. That should be alright. There's a little gap around there that we've liquid metaling. But yeah, that should do till we come back. I'll put a bit more time into it then. So, crisis averted.